A woman got pulled on stage by Usher, half naked, serenading her in front of thousands of people, and she said no, not with words, with her body. She leaned back. He leaned in. She leaned back further, and on video in front of the entire arena, Usher, one of the biggest R&B performers alive, looked at the crowd, shrugged, and said, "I don't think she want to be on stage, y'all." Then he walked away and had his team escort her off. That was it. That's all it took to set off 2 straight weeks of internet warfare. Because here's the thing, nobody expected the woman to become the story. Usher's the star. He's the one who's supposed to make headlines. But this time, it wasn't about him at all. It was about her, a woman named Gabrielle Cheyenne, sitting in a VIP seat in Nashville, who simply didn't perform the reaction millions of people online felt entitled to see. And that reaction, or lack of it, has now pulled in TMZ, Billboard, a viral debate about consent versus entertainment, and, most recently, actress Lisa Rai McCoy, who did not hold back. So let's actually break down what happened, why it blew up the way it did, and why a decades-old actress ended up in the middle of a Gen Z internet firestorm. This happened during Usher and Chris Brown's joint arena tour, a run that's already been drawing massive crowds every night. Usher, doing what Usher does, brought a fan up on stage for his signature serenade moment. It's a bit he's built a career on. Shirtless, smooth, leaning in close, letting the crowd watch a woman melt in real time. It's practically a rite of passage at his shows. Fans line up for it. Some plan their whole outfit around the possibility of being picked. But this particular night in Nashville, the woman he chose didn't melt. She froze. Or maybe she just wasn't into it. Either way, as he moved in closer, she visibly pulled back. Not dramatically, just enough that the discomfort was obvious on camera. And Usher, being a professional who reads a room for a living, caught it immediately. He stopped. He told the audience she didn't want to be up there, and that was the end of the segment. In any other era, this clip disappears in a day. It's a small, slightly awkward moment at a concert. But this is not that era. This is the era where every stray 10-second video clip has the potential to become a referendum on someone's entire personality. And the internet decided this one was worth dragging out. The clip spread fast, and the reaction was brutal. People weren't just confused by her hesitation. They were angry about it. Comment sections filled up with users mocking her for, in their words, wasting a moment other fans would have killed for. The framing everywhere was the same. This is a bucket list experience. She had the chance of a lifetime, and she blew it. That's the internet's favorite kind of pile-on, not one built on malice exactly, but on collective disbelief. The logic goes, thousands of people would trade places with her in a heartbeat, so her reaction reads as ungrateful, or worse, like she thinks she's better than the moment. Unfortunate, but Gabrielle didn't stay quiet. She came out and pushed back hard on the narrative that had already been written for her. Her explanation was straightforward. She and her mother originally had floor seats, not VIP. Usher's team approached them and upgraded their seats, and she wasn't told beforehand which performer she'd actually be brought up to meet. Since Usher was sharing the bill with copper seats, Chris Brown that night. In other words, this wasn't a moment she signed up for in the way people assumed. She didn't walk into that arena expecting to be part of the show. She also made it clear she wasn't rejecting the spotlight itself. She said she had zero issue with being seen on the Jumbotron in front of the whole crowd looking good. What she pushed back on was the assumption that she owed the audience a specific kind of physical reaction just because cameras were rolling. Her point, essentially, enjoying being seen and being expected to perform intimacy on command are two very different things. And that distinction is exactly where this story stopped, being a throwaway concert clip, and became something people actually started arguing about. Strip away the internet outrage for a second, and there's a real conversation buried in this story, one about consent, expectation, and the pressure placed on women in these viral, camera-ready moments. Because think about what actually happened. A woman was picked out of a crowd, likely with little warning. placed in front of thousands of strangers and countless more watching later online, and expected to react a certain way to a man she may not have had any romantic or sexual interest in. When she didn't play along the way people wanted, the backlash wasn't really about her manners. It was about the fact that she didn't fulfill a fantasy other people wanted to watch play out through her. That's a strange standard to hold anyone to, and it's worth noting, Usher himself didn't shame her for it in the moment. He clocked her discomfort and pulled back immediately, which, by most standards, is exactly the right move. The backlash didn't come from him, it came from an audience of strangers online who felt entitled to a performance that was never guaranteed in the first place. But that nuance mostly got buried under thousands of jokes, memes, and comments calling her out for fumbling the bag, as people love to say now about literally anything from job offers to marriage proposals to, apparently, a 30-second interaction with a pop star. This is where things shifted from a random viral clip to an actual celebrity news cycle. LisaRaye McCoy, the actress most people know from The Players Club and the sitcom All of Us, sat down for an episode of her podcast Side Chat with co-host Carlos King, and she did not come to be diplomatic. McCoy told her co-host that the woman should have simply stayed in her seat if she wasn't going to fully commit to the moment, using much blunter language than that on the actual episode. Her argument was rooted in expectation. In her view, when you go to an Usher and Chris Brown concert, you already know what that segment of the show looks like. You've seen it before. You know what's expected if you get picked. And if you're not prepared to lean into that energy, her take was simple. Don't go up there. And, she didn't stop at the stage moment either. McCoy also took aim at how Gabrielle handled the backlash afterward, criticizing her response online as overblown and suggesting she leaned too hard into defending herself rather than just letting the moment pass. Now here's why this actually landed as a bigger story than just another opinion in the replies. LisaRaye isn't some random commentator. She's someone who's spent decades in entertainment, who understands the unwritten rules of performance and public image, and her comments carried the weight of someone speaking from experience, not just reacting from the couch. When she talks about what's expected at a concert like that, she's speaking as someone who has actually lived inside that industry. That's exactly why it went from a tweet-sized controversy to a full news cycle. Outlets like Hollywood Unlocked picked it up almost immediately, running headlines built around her exact words. And once that happened, the story split into two separate arguments happening at once. People debating the original stage moment, and a whole new group debating whether LisaRaye had the right to weigh in the way she did. Here's what makes this story worth actually paying attention to, beyond the drama of it. This is a perfect example of how modern virality works. It's rarely about the original moment anymore. It's about the layers that get added afterward. Layer 1, the actual event. A woman doesn't lean into a serenade. Layer 2, the internet reacting, mocking, piling on. Layer 3, the subject fighting back publicly, refusing to just absorb the criticism quietly. Layer 4, a celebrity stepping in with an opinion, which reignites the entire conversation for a new audience that missed it the first time. Each layer creates its own wave of engagement, its own arguments, its own side-taking. And by the time you get to layer 4, most people commenting have probably never even watched the original 10-second clip. They're just reacting to headlines, to other people's opinions, to a story that's been passed through 3 or 4 filters already. That's the machine we're all plugged into now. And this story, Usher, Gabrielle, LisaRaye, is basically a textbook case study of exactly how it works. It's also worth pointing out, Usher hasn't disappeared from this conversation either. He's addressed the moment publicly since it happened, essentially standing by his decision to pull back the second he sensed she wasn't comfortable. His stance has been pretty consistent that he's not going to force an interaction on someone who clearly doesn't want it, regardless of what the crowd expected to see. That response actually matters here, because it undercuts a big chunk of the criticism aimed at Gabrielle. If the person who was actually on stage with her, the one whose show it was, whose reputation was on the line in that moment, say pa. didn't have a problem with how she reacted. It raises a real question about why so many strangers online decided they were more entitled to a reaction than he was. Honestly, that depends on which lens you're looking through. If you're looking at it purely as entertainment, as a moment built for a crowd that paid to be entertained, that if you get pulled up during a performance like that, you're signing up to play a role for a few seconds, whether you feel spontaneous chemistry or not. But if you're looking at it as a real interaction between two actual human beings, then the idea that a woman owes physical affection to a stranger, even a famous one, even in front of a crowd, because she happened to get picked out of an audience, starts to feel a lot less fair. Both of those readings are valid. And that tension is exactly why this story didn't just fade out after a few days, like most viral concert clips do. It touched something people already had strong opinions about: expectation, performance, consent, and who gets to decide what a woman owes a moment. At the end of the day, a woman went to a concert with her mom, got picked out of the crowd, and didn't react the way millions of strangers online thought she should. That single, small moment turned into international headlines, a viral debate about consent and entitlement, a public rebuttal from the woman herself, and now, commentary from a celebrity with decades in the industry weighing in on what she should have done. It's a reminder of just how fast a 10-second clip can spiral completely out of anyone's control, and how little control the person at the center of it actually has once the internet decides to have an opinion about her. Whether you side with Gabrielle, with Lisa Ray, or somewhere in between, one thing's clear: this story was never really about Usher at all.